let's take it away. Thank you very much, Steve. Hello, everyone. I've just noticed Steve's notes are stuck to the light at the back of here, which is quite interesting. So if I forget what we're supposed to be talking about, I might start talking about whatever Steve was supposed to be talking about.
That's good.
So yes, we're going to talk about psychological safety. But first, before we get into it, let's just do a bit of a sense check of who's in the audience. So is there anybody here for which psychological safety is a new concept? You've not heard about this before, or you haven't heard much about it, or... Okay, everyone. So either that or people don't feel safe enough to put their hand up. I don't know. That's my one joke. I've got it out of the way now. Right, so who is actively trying to build psychological safety within your teams? All right, cool. So we've designed this so we think it's got kind of something for everyone. We've run this the last time we ran this, it was in a massive theatre, and nobody put their hand up. Nobody had heard of psychological safety before. So, but hopefully there's something for everyone. Because it was in a massive theatre, we've just discovered some of our slides might be a bit small. So if you struggle to read anything, like maybe coming forward would be a good idea. But shall we get into a few more? I should say before I go on, liberating structures. So liberating structures are little facilitation techniques that you can use, and they're really good for giving everybody an equal opportunity to speak up in a workshop or in a meeting. So the relationship between that and psychological safety hopefully will become clearer as we go along. But all of the things we're going to go through are little tools and techniques that you can take away from today and use within your teams. Okay.
We've already sort of done intros, but yeah, I'm Christie Ronaldson. I work at Equal Experts, and I'm a relationship manager, and I look after the weird and wonderful HMRC account.
So I'm Jon Fulton, so I'm a lead consultant and delivery expertise lead. That sounds fancy. All that really means is I kind of facilitate and enable the community of delivery leaders at Equal Experts. And what I do in my day job, I'm part of what we call our enablement team across the north, our engagements that are in the north. And one of the things we do is we try and help us have sort of really healthy teams, healthy client engagements. So psychological safety can be kind of quite a big part of that as well. Okay.
So to get us started, we're going to warm everyone up and do a bit of an exercise. And we want you to get into groups of 4 and discuss a question. So this relates to the liberating structures that Jon mentioned. And wicked questions are supposed to bring to light when there are scenarios or situations where 2 things can be true at once that might contradict each other. So we've put this question that's obviously to do with psychological safety. So how can we have difficult conversations but still collaborate and learn simultaneously?
Yeah, maybe let's maybe drop into a few of the conversations and just hear and share with everyone like some of the things that people were talking about. So is there anything interesting in any of your conversations?
The 2 things that I think came up a lot is about building trust and communication with people. So whether that's on a one-on-one basis, so people feel like they can open up to each other, be a bit more vulnerable, and then in a larger space, it can maybe make it a bit easier. We also spoke about having some structures for people to understand, I don't know, whether it's a team charter or these are the things we as a team sign up to for this thing.
Yeah.
Rules can be really helpful for people to be able to like place and situationalize. I think I made up a new word.
So trust, like agreements and writing those agreements down, that kind of thing.
And making it like tactile as well. Like once it's out in the open, you can kind of hold yourselves account a little bit to it.
Yeah.
We've agreed to this thing, or maybe this isn't quite right with this thing. So it doesn't become Jon versus Gina, it becomes us versus this thing, kind of thing.
Cool. Okay. Anything else from any of the other groups?
So we talked about, similar to what you said, but we also talked about the importance of having a joint objective as a team, something to work towards, set the tone from the outset that everybody's opinion's important, and also have an understanding that people in the room might not be ready to give their opinion in that setting, and there are different ways of conversation. It doesn't have to be a verbal conversation. Sometimes you work with reflectors who want to go away and process that information and then come back and contribute.
Yeah.
So it's just working
Cool. So like shared goals and different ways of having the conversation. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think there's also not avoiding difficult conversations and putting them off, because then they become this big scary thing.
Mm-hmm.
So having a culture where it's normal to speak openly about what you can improve, what's going well, what's not going so well, what can we do better, and just having that as a normal way of talking, so that when you do have something that needs to be improved, well, it's just a normal conversation, it's not a difficult conversation.
Yeah, because if you avoid it, it makes the thing seem like more of a negative thing, but it's actually good if people can have difficult conversations, so yeah.
Cool. Okay, great. So I mean, this was really a bit of a warm-up just to get you into groups and talking, but you can kind of hear or get a flavour for the sorts of things that we're going to be talking about. Okay, and that's the wicked question. That's our first liberating structure. All right, let's move on. So around about 3 years ago now-ish, something like that, at Equal Experts, we had a bit of a focus on psychological safety. We wanted to be more deliberate about some of the practices that we actually do around psychological safety. But it all started, I mean, Equal Experts is it's a network organisation. It's very low hierarchy. We don't really, neither Christie or I have a boss. So there's no like power structures that you can tap into. You can't really get to say, tell everybody to start taking psychological safety seriously. So what we really started was just a big conversation. And we talked to a lot of people about what their experiences or understandings of psychological safety was. And what we discovered is that we didn't really have a common shared understanding of what psychological safety is. What we had is there was lots of things that we would hear when we say, what do you think psychological safety is? Some people would reference kind of mental health. Some people would talk about constructive criticism. And all of these things are kind of they're kind of around and related, but they don't give us a definition of what psychological safety is. So that's what we wanted to have. And what we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. And there is a definition that exists. There's a lady called Amy Edmondson. She wrote a book called The Fearless Organisation. And in that, there is a clear definition of what psychological safety is. So we decided to use that one. Although, as is not unusual for Equal Experts, there was a significant debate about that and whether psychological safety is this. Some people felt this term was kind of a bit fluffy, but in the end, we said, well, we've probably more work to do if we try and come up with a different definition. So let's keep with it and see what happens. So this is the definition of psychological safety as presented by Amy Edmondson in her book. It's a belief that the context is safe for interpersonal risks, that speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns and mistakes will be valued. So first of all, let's think about context. And I'll give you an idea of a context. So Christie and I worked on this slide deck. And when we were working on that slide deck, the context for psychological safety was the two of us. It was just two of us in that conversation. And there was a version of this presentation that was done more than a year ago at another conference. And Christie kind of had a look at this presentation that we had and said, you know what, this visually doesn't look that great. Now, I was involved in putting that first presentation together, and I guess there's different ways I could have reacted to that, which is that I could have been a bit precious about it and said, no, this is fine, it's worked before. But no, it was fine for Christie to raise that, and what happened as a result of that is Christie kind of got some of our designer type folks to have a look at it, and now we have a presentation which is much more on brand with the sorts of presentations that you would get from Equal Experts. So as a result of us having enough psychological safety that Christie could say that, all of you now as the customers of our presentation have something better as a result. And that's kind of the point of why psychological safety is important, because ultimately the customer gets something better as a result of us being able to have these kind of safe or safer conversations. Okay, let's move on. So I have a little demonstration here. So let's think of another context. So I mentioned there was a context where there was just the two of us. Now let's switch the context up and think about more of a team setting. So we've got a team here, and I'm just going to imply that the person stood at the front is maybe a bit of a team leader or something. And I'm going to say, so we're all in agreement with my plan then. And the team say, sure thing, boss. Brilliant. I'm on board. Sounds great. And he's obviously thinking, oh, I'm such a great leader because everyone's really bought into my plan. And what he doesn't know is what people are actually thinking. So yes, this team is not on board with this plan. However, they are not psychologically safe enough to express that view or speak up.
I like the lol one.
Yes. So what's going to happen as a result of this? I mean, if this is maybe this is a great plan, but maybe it's not. And if it's not, maybe this team are all about to play follow my leader off a cliff. We don't know. But if they can't have that conversation and they can't debate it openly and discuss the pros and cons and table different ideas and think about what might happen, they're not going to be able to explore that as a team. So this is what Amy Edmondson says. She says, in real life, you can't see those thought bubbles, but you need to know that they're there. And that is what having a psychologically safe environment will give us the opportunity to get those things out there, and we can debate it and have a conversation about it. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to have some myths and facts. Christie's going to run us through this. The first thing I say is I just apologise for the size of these.
Yeah, can we see these or not? We might have to.
If you can't see, there is some space down here. If you do want to kind of move forward. We did do this on a really big screen last time. So.
Yes, because this is more of we're throwing it back to you guys. This a bit of an activity. So we've got 6 statements on the screen, and they range from a strong corporate culture will consistently drive high levels of safety, to safety means feeling comfortable. And what we want you to do is firstly familiarise yourself with the statements, and then for a minute have a think about whether you think each statement is either a myth or a fact, and then go from there.
It does say on an index card. You're
We've
going to have to
scrapped the
use
index card.
Use the power of your brains rather than an index card. But if you have notes, you can write something down. So I'm going to set a timer going for 1 minute. Christie?
So now, I mean, some of you would, I think, already doing this, but for 2 minutes, pair with the person next to you and compare what you think. See if you can find any synergies, or if you totally disagree on certain ones. So again, I think some people are already doing this, but now in groups of 4, do the same thing again, and then try and reach a consensus on what you think are myths or facts. So we want to hear from you guys now. So for number 1, has anyone got anything they want to share, what they thought? Yeah?
A strongly experience of working with people from strong corporate cultures, I'd say that's false. And there's a lot where they're highly hierarchical, and you don't get the levels of safety. And if you're with the VC, whatever, then you kind of have to just go with what they say. So I would suspect. Less so than in other organisations.
So for you, strong culture for you was kind of translated as to a hierarchical culture.
Then you have to follow the rules, and therefore, because of that, you to some extent lose the safety, psychological safety.
Okay. Yes.
I do think a great culture within an organisation helps, but it's not guaranteed. I think you've got to nurture the right culture and invest in it, and then invest in individuals as well, because people are very different. So I think a strong corporate culture can help, but it's not guaranteed.
Yeah.
I would agree with that, because like Jon's example before, it's yeah, you could have a great company culture, but then if the context in your team, there isn't good psychological safety there, then it doesn't matter about the great culture. So
Yeah.
The wording as well, a strong corporate culture, for me, I thought was, I've been in really strong cultures that were horrifically toxic.
Yeah.
So strong, for me, I don't read that as necessarily being positive.
It's
Yes.
the corporate bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's a strong culture, then I'd say, yeah, that's...
Yeah.
It was a wording for us as well.
Yeah.
We immediately went to the same direction as you. I worked somewhere where the strong culture was very much you're on the bus or you're under the bus.
Oh God.
Yeah.
So that, as soon as I saw that, I was like,
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so I mean, it could definitely mean that. And you know, another interpretation might be like a much healthier culture. But either way, so and we're going to kind of reveal what we think is true or false here. Just before I do that, I should say that that's based on what's in Amy Edmondson's book, and it's kind of a joined up of what's in Amy Edmondson's book and a bit of our opinion as well. So whilst we reveal what we think is true or what we think is false, it's still up for debate. So there's not necessarily a right or wrong. But we're already doing that full group discussion. So we've got false on that one. And I think the important thing is what we said at the beginning around context. So when Christie and I had that conversation about the slide deck, that was a context. And regardless of the culture that's around us, either one of us can behave in different ways, and we can change that context of what psychological safety feels like. And so even in a culture that really supports psychological safety, you will still find pockets of low psychological safety within that organisation.
The crap slide deck. So what about number 2? So people in leadership roles are the only ones who can influence psychological safety. What did people think about that?
Disagree with word only, but
Yeah.
they're definitely not the only people who can influence it, but they are disproportionately effective at influencing it and have a much larger influence over the team as a whole and how the dynamics work there than necessarily the team.
Yeah. I really pretty much nailed it. Yeah. And again, back to that. We just take that context of 2 people. Like either one of us could influence psychological safety in that environment massively, and neither of us have to be leaders to do that. Also within our teams, all of our individual behaviours and how we talk to other people and treat other people and all of that stuff will massively influence that. However, if you are in a leadership role, you do have more impact on psychological safety, and people are kind of, they watch and they listen to the things that you say and they interpret them, and it can have a significant impact. So yeah, false for that one as well.
Gold star. Number 3, so in a safe environment, failure is celebrated.
Yeah, we had a problem with the word celebrated.
Yeah.
I think we came to the word in isn't punished. Yeah. So you don't make a big song and dance about failure, but you don't kind of what's that I'm looking for? Yeah, you don't punish people for failure necessarily.
Yeah.
It depends if you fail in well, I'm not saying you should punish anyone, but if you fail in the same thing again and again, you wouldn't celebrate it, would you? So. Yeah.
So what is the thing that we should celebrate? I think it's probably if we learn something from it.
And that it's okay to be honest. So if somebody does fail, then it's okay to be open with the rest of the team, and that is the thing you can celebrate. The word fail is really triggering, which is what everybody just. I heard somebody swap it for the word fall, and the reason they did, I loved that, because if you fall, naturally everybody else goes to pick you back up again, and that's a different way of doing it. So
yeah, nice, yeah, cool, yeah. I mean, I once heard somebody say, like, my son falls off his bike. I mean, I don't celebrate the fact that my son falls off his bike, but then sometime, in the future, I'll see him riding his bike really well, and then that'll be something to celebrate, because he's learned from, you have to fall off the bike a few times to learn.
Sorry.
Yes, please.
I think you can celebrate the fact that someone has been able to have a go at something.
Yeah.
Because if you allow teams to, if you just have like a leader saying, this is the way we do things, because I know it's safe and I know this way works, then that doesn't build psychological safety. But if it's like, well, how do you think we should do it? Okay, let's have a go and see, even if, you know, maybe it won't work, but you're given the chance to do that, then that's something to celebrate as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've learnt something on that journey anyway, so.
So much.
Yeah.
So much more than just being told it won't work.
Yeah, and there's a great link into the Liberating Structures here as well, because if you think about like that, the picture at the beginning with the guy saying like, we're going to do it this way, the Liberating Structures give you the opportunity to have that conversation as a team. Cool. So
I think
yeah.
guardrails are really important. Yeah. So for linking maybe 2 and 3 about leadership, if you're leading a team and it's a safe environment, someone can fail and they'll say something to you. But if they do fail and then, I don't know, you chastise them, even though you've said, go and do it how you want, but it's not actually the way I want it, so I'm going to shout at you for doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
The safe environment of failing is those guardrails of like, what does failure look like? And goes back to like that contractual conversation of what is this thing, what does failure and what does success mean to us?
Yeah. It's like sometimes that, oh, go on, do it your way then. That's actually, it's kind of a bit of a setup, isn't it, for you? Yeah.
But you're wrong.
Frequently, that's true.
So what about safety is ensuring that people are nice to each other?
That one made me feel a little bit uncomfortable, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like the word nice is, sometimes it can shroud what people really mean. Maybe it's like a bit safety, ensuring people are comfortable in saying what they mean to each other or whatever. But nice, I think, can sometimes mean I'm going to hide what I really am trying to say because I'm trying to, I don't know, protect the relationship or the feelings. And I think within a consultancy world that can be really challenging as to how psychologically safe that environment is for you to be able to give a critical piece of information to somebody in an environment. But yeah, I think the word nice is a bit...
I do have a different interpretation. I believe that when people are able to express themselves in a positive criticism, they feel more safe to express themselves, so the people around them have a better understanding of their point of view. So naturally, in my opinion, can develop a way to communicate in a more nice way. Because people are not afraid to express themselves and they know each other opinion, also on more complicated matter. So the become nicer is automatically, is organically development of the relationship between people than kind of trust each other.
Yeah.
I believe. So this can be one outcome. So I know that sometimes nice can feel like someone is nice because he's hiding something, but when you are aware of his thoughts, you may feel more than is a genuinely nicer with you.
It's when it becomes like about the greater good. So like we share this goal together, and therefore me telling you this helps us both progress towards our goal.
I'm going to be slightly awkward and play devil's advocate here. I would argue that probably my most psychologically safe area is around friends. I'm definitely not nice to my friends sometimes. So I don't think it's necessarily niceness is a part of it, so much as you can feel safe in expressing a negative viewpoint and being unnice while knowing it won't necessarily ruin that relationship and that understanding between people. So it's not.
Yeah, it doesn't get personal.
Yeah.
Adult to adult kind of thing.
I know I call my friends the same, but I won't take it personally.
There's respect there. Respect as well.
You at the back?
Nice.
I was just going to say, I've thought about this quite a lot, because my mum used to say to me when I was growing up, if you've got anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Yeah.
But obviously that's not radical candor, right, which we were talking about. But I sort of reframed it as being kind, because I guess being nice is telling somebody what they want to hear, whereas being kind is actually saying what needs to be said. You can still do that in a nice way, right, in a positive way, and be respectful, but sometimes being kind is saying the things that are unsaid between, friends or colleagues or family.
It's interesting you mentioned radical candor, because is it radical candor that talks about like ruinous empathy? And I think that's like kind of in this space. It's like you're trying to be nice and therefore you're not saying the thing that needs to be said. It's worth saying as well, it's also not about being not nice, right? We're not going to go around being deliberately not nice to each other, but yeah, it's about having the conversations that need to be had. So yeah, bit of a pattern emerging. Next one.
Safety and high performance are closely intertwined.
They're not closely intertwined because if my project manager is bad and I improve safety, it's still going to be bad. It's a requirement for high performance rather than necessarily a direct causation.
Okay.
In my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, it's welcome.
As well, in terms of conclusion, like one aids the other, but I think we struggle with the word entwined. Felt too much. Linked to felt better than entwined.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think that was the only one we said was true. Was definitely true.
So with this one, so I don't know if has anybody heard of Project Aristotle? So this was something at Google. Google wanted to understand more about the teams that they had that were really high performing. So they did some research into it, sort of looked into what these teams are doing, and long story short, the conclusions of that was actually that all of the high performing teams shared psychological safety in common. In fact, it was the one thing that was common between all of their high performing teams. And in fact, they went on to say that of all the things that that make up a high performing team, psychological safety is the one single most important one of them. And the reason for that, I think, is go back to that setting with the manager and what he was talking about. And like, imagine that team and the manager's got an idea that's not going to be successful. That team's not going to be high performing. Well, the team that can really debate and discuss those things has a much higher chance of being high performing. So for this one, we're going to say true. But it's a safe space, so we can disagree.
Everyone who got it wrong, leave now. So finally, safety means feeling comfortable. Has anyone got anything to comment on that?
I definitely have faults for that. Because
Well, we weren't comfortable, we're comfortable.
we're uncomfortable with comfortable.
I think this one's really interesting for me. I was thinking of like fight or flight responses, and for me being able to feel comfortable to say something uncomfortable, like I don't know, if you're screaming in my face right now, I'm going to feel really uncomfortable. Not you, John, I don't think. If somebody is screaming in my face, I'm going to feel really uncomfortable to not be able to share something, and that's kind of how I thought about this one.
Cool.
I think it's really interesting hearing all the different reasons behind people answering, because I think it's all, and a lot of it is based on situations that we personally have had psychological safety or haven't.
Yeah.
And so we're speaking from that place of experiences. Some of us have got different answers and they sound really right, but they're right because of the different contexts we've had in our different workplaces in the past.
Yes.
I mean, for me, I think they could have done with a few more words on the end, like comfortable to speak up would have helped, or comfortable, because sometimes the people in that room, in that meeting room, they were all comfortable because they were keeping quiet. They were not putting themselves out there, so they were comfortable insofar as they weren't putting their jobs at risk. They were keeping themselves safe in their comfort zone. They may have had reservations. They may not have been comfortable in what's happening, but they knew they were putting. I don't know. You could read it in lots of ways.
Yeah. And I think where the sort of, because comfortable and also nice, I think where that's coming from is this interpretation that often some people have when they hear psychological safety, and they imagine that it's just about all being nice and comfortable, and it's all fluffy, and and this is trying to move it to the conversation about why is that actually linked to performance. So the way I kind of describe this one is thinking about safety in the same way that somebody who's climbing a mountain would think about safety. If you climb to the top of a mountain, if that's your goal, that is not a comfortable thing to do. But you need safety equipment. If you're going to stand on the top of Mount Everest, you're going to need some oxygen and some ropes and an axe and whatever else you're going to need. So if you just wanted to be comfortable, you would never attempt that. But if we are in the pursuit of goals that are actually challenging to achieve, then we need that safety to be able to achieve them.
And you need to trust that the rope between you and your partner is very strong.
Yes. Yeah. Otherwise, you're probably either both falling off or yeah. Okay. So yeah, that one we had as false as well. So that was kind of the 1, 2, 4 all. So we had the conversation, I had the thinking individually, and then in a pair, and then in a 4, and then we had a group conversation. So hopefully gave everybody an opportunity to have take part in the conversation. Right.
So another liberating structure is, well, TRIZ. So this is quite a fun one because it kind of makes you think about what's the things we need to stop doing, or what are the worst things that we might do. So yeah, in this example, we want you to, I know it says make a list, but obviously we're just going to ask you to think about for 5 minutes what you might do in your teams or workplaces to create the worst psychological safety imaginable.
And we can't use real names, is that right?
Yeah, it's up to you. Yeah, so this is your opportunity to be
Oh, and you get in groups of
Darth
4,
Vader.
sorry, I didn't give you any.
Yeah, groups of 4 for
Groups
5
of 4 and have a
minutes.
talk about it.
So what we're going to do is we're going to flip this around.
Yeah, so now have a similar conversation, but it's not doing the exact opposite of the things you said that would create the worst environment, but now you've got those horrible things out in the open, you can hopefully find better solutions. So yeah, try and speak about how you might create a positive, psychologically safe environment in your teams for 4 or 5 minutes.
4 minutes. All right, so there is something slightly different about this liberating structure as to how you might do that within your teams. So if you would, obviously you don't all share a context, but if you did, so if you're in a team that you all shared that team context, there's probably something you do in between these, which would be to ask yourselves, is there anything we do that remotely resembles what we talked about at the beginning?
Another way you can do these types of things is think of a place where you've been, where this has been really challenging. As an example, like psychological safety, think of like you've been in a team, it's been the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
And again, creating that shared context can be really helpful, because then you can flip it on your head and say, as a team, what do we want to achieve that's different to that? And
Yeah.
then gives the people in the team that shared understanding.
Yeah. Yes. So that would probably be really good at like when you do like initial team formation. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. And obviously, if you're doing this as well, like get the post-it notes out and or Miro if you're remote. And what else was I going to say? Yeah, and you can also like visualize it. Like you can do like what's inside the circle and what's outside the circle. So you put all those behaviours that you don't want outside the circle, and then like flip them to the ones that you do that are in. So that can form like a nice. We talked about team charters earlier. That can form like a nice starting place for team charters and get those agreements for the kinds of things that you do want to have in your team versus things that you don't. So yeah, TRIZ, by the way. When we once put this up and somebody said that doesn't make TRIZ, that's because this is Russian. So whatever the Russian is for the theory of inventive problem solving is TRIZ. So I don't think we've got time because we've got a bunch of other things, but we're not going to have time for those. So I think should we just go to questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go to questions.
Any questions? Or does anyone want to share anything that came out of the discussions they've just had?
Excellent. So it's something that I've been reading a lot recently. It actually kicked me off because I read Principles by Ray Dalio. I don't know if you've read that before. It's a phenomenal book. And he built his company on, well, it's not a company, it's like the biggest hedge fund in the world. But he built his entire business on data-driven decision making. So he basically automated his entire decision process into a machine, so that all principles of decision making were all done by point system. So for example, you get points based on your hierarchy, your expertise in that field, and then you'd add those points together with like how good the decision was and how good that idea is with the other team. And that removes human error of emotion, like ego and all that stuff and pride. I wonder how like you've been seeing about other ways you can work around stuff.
So I think I would say that like psychological safety kind of like it impacts everything. So even if you've got like really clear data, you're still going to have a conversation about that data and interpret it. And I can't remember who it was, but there's a quote about data which is, data doesn't give you better answers, it gives you better questions. And so you're asking those questions, you've still got to have a conversation about them, debate them, and therefore that is still subject to psychological safety, just like anything else. That's right. There's who went first? Yeah, I think you went first, but I'm not sure. Go on.
Theoretically, if I was in a team where my leader was actively undermining psychological safety regularly, how might I approach helping it within the team if you've got someone actively undermining it continuously?
Yeah. So I mean, first of all, you've kind of got to judge like what you're prepared to do, and in some environments, in particularly difficult environments, that could lead to you actually something detrimental in terms of your performance or rating. So you've still got to keep that in mind. But if you can you find constructive ways to deliver the feedback? Can you take it out of the team setting so that there's less pressure on it? Those are the sorts of things I think I'd be thinking about. But it's not easy. Where do we go? Should we go here?
I was wondering, you said that I think a few years ago you spent some time at Equal Experts thinking about psychological safety and really concentrating on it. I was wondering how you revisit it and make sure that you keep working at it and you keep recognising where you need to make improvements. What you do for that. So
there was actually like a 90-minute version of this talk where we kind of talked about the whole kind of history of what happened there. So we started out actually trying to measure psychological safety. So we would ask teams to they'd get an anonymous questionnaire and they would fill it in. But we found that was very much subject to, all the things that you might expect it to be subject to. Like people, do they actually want to fill it in? Are you getting the numbers actually meaningful? And we couldn't, because it was all anonymous, you couldn't really tie it back to anything anyway. So in the end, we decided that wasn't that constructive of a thing to do. So instead now what we do is we try and support what teams are doing on the ground. So we've got things like there's like a Mentimeter health check that teams can do that kind of asks them, so the teams themselves kind of say, we would like to run the health check, and then we can kind of go and help them facilitate it. And there's other things like there's a version of this that we do with our customers to actually share psychological safety with our customers and get them thinking about it as well, and how there's also very lightweight health checks that we kind of advocate as well, where just at the start of your retro, just like do 1 to 5 how the team's feeling, and you as a team measure that rather than trying to accumulate it all back into one measurement, because as we know, it's all context dependent anyway. So I think that's probably the main learning that we've had, is like trying to join it all up is very difficult, and I think we've learned that it's more about just trying to support teams and your wider engagements outside of the team as well, around the environment around the teams and how we can help them. Okay, there's one at the back.
Quick question. I love Liberating Structures. I think they're great. I've had challenges with them working with remote teams. I just wondered if you've got any tips or tricks on how to make them useful when you're working in more hybrid environments.
So I think making use of breakout rooms, I think that can be quite useful.
Do you think more face-to-face is more effective?
I would say so.
Yeah, I mean, I think it. Actually, I'm back to the kind of the research from the work of Amy Edmondson. One of the things Amy Edmondson says is, whilst there's still a lot of research ongoing and it's not conclusive, there is evidence that building psychological safety is harder when you're working remotely. So it doesn't mean it's impossible, but it is harder. So I think to answer your question, you've just got to be more deliberate about it, more prepared. How am I going to, what sort of challenges am I going to face into? What pitfalls am I going to run into when I'm running this workshop? And can I plan ahead for those? So if I do find X or Y is happening, what am I going to do if I do find that?
Yeah, you're thinking just in that point there, having one of these is just get people on the camera on sometimes is a big issue.
Yeah.
Trying to do something this if people are turning the cameras on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then again,
You just see their initials. That's how you know them.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing as well. So we stopped short of like an edict or something that says everyone should put their cameras on. But what we try and do instead is kind of just lead by example. So you generally find on an Equal Experts engagement, all of the people from Equal Experts will have their cameras on, and then over time, everyone just kind of comes along with it. So that's kind of worked for us. Yeah.
I'd like to make a slightly controversial point on cameras.
Yes.
Sometimes it's exhausting all day to be on a camera, and like we've got no idea what's going on in someone's life. Like I work with people that have got lots of children in their house, and everything's really noisy, and it's a really stressful environment. So sometimes having a camera off is actually probably less distracting.
Yes.
And it's situational, it's context, and I think a lot of this is about understanding that human beings are human beings.
Yes.
And that having one-on-one discussions with people can make this stuff, for want of a better phrase, much easier.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I found work is actually just like, so I'm going to put my camera on, and if you want to, I invite you to put yours on. But then just letting whoever just decide if that's right for you.
I think it's harder to have empathy with a screen with an initial on it than a face of a human. That's one thing I struggle with.
You speak with your hands, and I speak with my hands way too much. I always have a camera on, otherwise I feel like I just don't understand what I'm saying. Sign language.
Yes.
Yeah. When I joined a project, and it was a running project, been running for a year, and although it was a special effort for a lot of people, I said, look, can we organise so we all meet up in the office? And I'll take you out for lunch. We'll go out for lunch, which wasn't anything special, but it was just somewhere in Leeds. And it was the first time the team had ever actually physically met. And one guy was 5'4", one guy was 6'4", and on the camera, it was hilarious. Seeing them meet each other, it was brilliant. Following that meeting, the team interaction, it was palpable. The difference, the step change in how the team dynamics worked, how everybody would engage with each other, the trust we built and we didn't discuss anything in particular, anything other than normal. We just sat around the table, and you could really, you knew that person so much better.
Yeah.
And I know that's not always possible. There's geographical restrictions which you can't always make it. But yeah, I've seen it. The step change was remarkable.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have team away days for that reason.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry I have to call it there because this conversation going on lovely as it is, but people need to get home. If people want to find out more about psychological safety and liberating structures, where could they go?
So liberatingstructures.com, I think, the website. There's Amy Edmondson's book is called The Fearless Organisation. That's a great place to start.
Or they can message you on LinkedIn.
They could do that as
Or
well.
me.
Thank you, Christie. Yeah. No, in all seriousness, yeah, please do.
So, thank you very much. That was fantastic.